Alright, I had another bookmark abandon, a Fear Street novel. This time it was Final Grade. Will Lily get an A in murder? Let's get into it. 1995 this one was released. Back in his heyday when he was like pumping these out in like 2 weeks. So, our lead character, let's introduce her. She's a classic overachiever type. I mean, everyone had one in their grade. She even has this kind of callous mentality when it comes to getting what she wants. And what she wants is straight A's, of course. She's really competing hard for this valedictorian of the class because every valedictorian at Shadyside High gets this scholarship to college. She could really use it. So, yeah, she's just a really selfish character, and not many characteristics that you really like, but I'm sure a lot of girls that read these novels could relate to this type of girl. So anyway, right from the start, there's this opening scene where her social science teacher, I think it is. Anyway, he's this cocky, like, young 30-year-old who, he expects more out of her. Her name's Lily. And, he gives her a B+, and she just freaks out, and she ends up having this hallucinatory paroxysm in which it's kind of like this cover that you see right here. She basically chokes him to death, kills him, but obviously that's her only savagery only comes out in her reverie, so it wasn't real. But of course he ends up dead a few chapters later. And that's really early on in the book, and the body count really totals up in this one. It really becomes a burden. Anyway, let's introduce the other characters. Her best friend, which is customary in every R.L. Stine Fear Street book. Her name's Julie. We get a needless backstory from her that her brother died a couple of years ago, and it was an unsolved murder. So she's obsessed with murder mystery novels now. And whenever you get a needless backstory, usually that's cause for suspicion in these novels because they're only 140 pages long. And usually when a secondary character gets a backstory, they usually end up being the killer. That usually ends up being motive. But she isn't the killer. Let's meet the other characters. She's got a boyfriend, of course, which she ignores. I mean, there's really nothing. All this girl does is study and get harassed in every scene. She has no time for him. His name's Alex. He's kind of whiny and passive aggressive because she never has any time for him. He's even the jealous type too, because she also works on the student paper. She's on like the debate quiz team or something, and this editor's name's Scott. And we'll get more into Scott coming up here. But who's she competing? Who's her main rival for valedictorian? It's Graham. And he's kind of cocky and he just so happens to be Julie's cousin. And because she got the B+ in the science class, she's like, oh, well, I'm gonna lose now. So she just pretty much goes through this melancholy phase where she's like, oh, there's no way I could win. And then she uses her book smarts because she really has no street smarts and she's really not that interesting. And she's like, maybe I could do some extra credit. So she goes into the room, and guess what? She finds the dead body of her science teacher. Police deem it an accident, and so, but the whole class or the whole school kind of has suspicion on her. So that kind of looms throughout. Then eventually Graham, the valedictorian who she's competing with, who was looking like he was a cinch for a class valedictorian, he actually, because her science teacher died, then she was able to redo that test, and she got back into the competition. Anyway, they have this useless robbery in it. There's also this other guy named Rick, so there's a lot of cocks in this. And this guy just keeps on flirting with her. She also works at her uncle's drugstore, like nights. Somehow she has time to work, and she studies till midnight. I mean, this character is real busy. The only time that she even gets off time is like she plays tennis with them and she really doesn't even care. She's like, oh, I guess I don't even care. But guys want her for some reason because Scott, the student editor, he kind of favors her and asks her opinion and really respects her opinion, which is why her boyfriend Alex gets jealous of him. Anyway, they all work on the student paper and they end up going to this printing press to print off a magazine late at night, and Graham, the valedictorian, she ends up finding his body in the printing press, and his blood's just splattered everywhere. She even gets blood on her from it. And for some reason, the cops don't even really question her, and they're just kind of blow it over like, oh, well, I guess that was accidental too. And she has another, like, hallucination where his corpse comes to life at the funeral or whatnot. Anyway, I'm going to get on with this. They reveal the killer about 100 pages in, so that's about 2/3 of the way in. It ends up being Scott, the editor, because you could tell he kind of flirts with her and he has an eye for her. And he's like, well, of course I was killing those people because you were upset and I've always loved you, and even though you'd have no time for me and we couldn't even go on a date, I want us to be together. And I killed those people so you could be valedictorian. I know how much it meant to you. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, well, you cannot tell on me, because if you tell on me, I'll tell him that you told him that you wanted me to kill him. Oh, gotcha. And, yeah. So she goes along with it. She goes on his dates. She's being blackmailed by him. Kind of like, what's that one? Call waiting? No, not call waiting. I don't know. There's another one kind of just like it, where the boyfriend, or where a guy kind of blackmails the girl into dates. So she blackmails her into going on dates, and they kind of act as a couple, and Alex gets more pissed off, and she's like, well, we're not going out. We were just studying at the library, of course. Anyway, they end up going to this, like, biker bar and run into Rick, and he's like, what are you doing? Is this your boyfriend? And she's like, yeah. But that's just totally pointless plotline. Anyway, back to the conclusion of this. Julie starts figuring it out because she sees herself as a Nancy Drew Sleuth type. And so she's like, I know who killed Graham, my cousin, and it's on the recording because Scott was like, I told Graham to meet me there at the press a little early so I could kill him. And apparently he left a message on the recording, and they all go to the press, and you're like, okay, we see what's going to happen. He's going to get shoved into the printing press. He's a real psycho, and he's really cold and coarse, and you kind of like his dialogue because he's just like, well, yeah, whatever, but we get to be together, you know, and we're going out on a date. I mean, you'll accept it, and there's no way you could tell on me. Remember, because I got you, because you're not that smart. You're only book smart, Lily. Remember that. Anyway, he ends up stealing her uncle's gun, and he shoots Julie, but it's not even a real gun, we end up learning. So Julie comes back to life and cracks him over the head with a pipe, so he doesn't even die after killing 2 people. And then he's like, I guess we gotta kill Julie since she suspects me. Anyway, he's like, I could throw the gun in the Fear Street woods. Fear Street really doesn't even come into play. I think they, like, drive down Fear Street once. I can't remember if Julie lives on Fear Street. I don't think she does. She ends up getting harassing phone calls, like in every one of these books in this. Anyway, overall, I hate it. Hate this character. Never gonna read it again. I give it a C+ overall. This was JBM from Mr. Creepshow 9. Tune in for more reviews on Fear Street novels coming soon. Subscribe, leave a message, personal message me, and I'm out.